Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. It has been a week again. As you can see, I don't quite have the dust collection back up. It is wired. It is tested. It does work. Now I'm running finishing the overhead ducting for it. And there will be a video of sorts about it and the lean-to, about the installation and all this other good stuff. And that'll come down the road. I'm not exactly sure when. What I'm doing now is, as you can see up on the machine, I am connecting the flex hose up to the ductwork, that the galvanized ductwork that I'll be running over the top of the machine, and get that all hung and then eventually grounded and plugged in. Without, well, it will be giving stuff away, but what the heck. My Avid CNC controller right here has a relay system built into it that I can plug the dust collector into it and then control it automatically through this computer, Mach 4, with an M8 command to turn it on and an M9 command to turn it off. Or there's a button that I can turn it on manually if I want to run it with, without the G code. So that's how I'm going to control it. I won't have to worry about remotes or anything else. Currently, I will be adding manually, I'll be adding an M8 code to the G code until I get in and get a post processor made. One of your favorite subjects there, Brooks Martin. I'm going to be copying and editing a post processor to automatically add that M8 command to turn on that relay, which will turn on the dust collector before the spindle comes on. And that will give it time. There's already a dwell set in the G code that when the spindle comes on, it dwells until that spindle runs up to speed before it starts moving over to make the cut. Well, by putting that M8 command before the M3 to turn on the spindle, that'll give it just a little bit more time for the dust collector to come up to speed. And it's going to be nice. I've already tested it. It does work. Everything else. Yes, Kurt, the dust collector power is plugged into the Avid CNC control box. There are two relays there that are built into the control box. Because these control boxes are made for several different applications. And we're talking about the Avid now. One application is routing, like I have it set up with the spindle. The spindle is controlled. You can't see it for all the cords and everything else. There's a separate spindle control box that is 240 volt back there, and it's plugged into a 240 volt outlet that you can just barely see right there. And the electronics box here, that's all 120 volt. If this controller is used for a plasma cutter, you can plug in the plasma torch down here if it's a 110 model, a 120 model. You could also run a pump for coolant. If you're not using a spindle, you're using a router, you can plug the router in down here. So they come pre-configured with two relays and two output plugs and two input plugs. So if whatever accessory you are running on it has an input to go into that relay, then it has the output. So they're pre-configured. All you have to do is plug something in there and then tell the controller what it is. Then you have to get into either modifying a post processor to automatically put that M8 command at the beginning of your G code to energize that relay. The post processor already puts in an M9 command, which shuts it all down. So that's already there. But I need to modify the post processor in the command segment to just put that M8 code in there. So, but that's down the road, and I will be doing a video on that. And this is all in Mach 4. Mach 3 is very similar, but I've never done it in Mach 3, so I don't presume to try to tell somebody how to do it in Mach 3. As a few people have already mentioned, this is the 200th live Q&A. And when you hit a milestone like that, automatically you start thinking about, geez, 200 episodes and wow, and it very, very much humbles me in that this was all one of those serendipitous little, I won't say mistakes, but a little bit of a serendipitous misunderstanding in that the idea came from my friend Dave Gatton. This was back when I was doing a video a week, no matter what. And for one reason or another, I don't even remember which one it was. I didn't have a video that week. So I said, well, let me go ahead and go live, and we'll just answer questions. We'll just do a live Q&A. And he messaged me when I promoted it on Facebook. He messaged me saying, are you doing a Q&A after your video that goes live later? Thinking that I had a video that just hadn't gone live yet. And I said, no, I don't have a video. This is instead of a video. And he said, oh, I thought that, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact conversation. This was a couple of years ago. He says, oh, I thought you were going to release a video and then do a Q&A on it. And I said, no. Oh, you think that's a good idea? And he said, yeah, I think it's a great idea. So this is, again, 100% his idea. And if you're watching, Dave, thank you for it, because, I mean, I don't know how much good these live Q&As do. I really have no way of knowing, because people come in and they ask questions and they make comments and what have you. And I never really see the result of any of this stuff. All I can tell you is I have a ball doing it. I look forward to it every week, in that we get to exchange ideas. Because when you ask me questions, I'm not afraid to say I don't know. Nobody can know everything. Nobody that you want to talk to anyway. But when we share ideas back and forth like this, you get me to thinking about how could I take that and turn that into something else? Or how can I apply that to what I've been doing? And you really make me backstop myself. You make me check myself. And you've made my experience in doing all of this so much better. Now, having said all of that, this was never about me. It was never supposed to be about me. And I'm not out to get rich. I'm not out to become famous. I'm not out to do any of that stuff. I'm genuinely out here to help folks because I've been that guy. My whole purpose for doing this is to help the people who have never done this before or who are getting frustrated because they're not getting results and who just feel lost or that this is somehow over their heads. My whole goal in all of this is to show people that you can do this if you're willing to sit down with the software and get out on the machine, learn the machine, learn the software, and learn how to control it and use it. That none of this is over your head. You can do it. That's my goal. And, I, uh, like I said, I'm not out to become rich with this, and it's a good thing because you won't. Uh, I'm not out to self promote or do any of this stuff. I just have fun. I genuinely enjoy making the videos. I genuinely enjoy doing these live Q&As. And I owe that 100% to you guys who keep coming back. I I thank you all very much for watching the videos, for showing up for these live streams, for the comments, the suggestions, the questions, for sharing the videos, all of that. You really have no idea what that means to have people, say, thank you for the help. And, I did this, and post pictures up on Facebook or on Instagram of look at what I did. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So I owe it 100% to you guys. Some of you may have noticed that for this live Q&A, I've set it to subscribers only mode because you guys are the real ones. You're the real folks. You are the ones that this is about. You are the ones that this is for. Having said that, that doesn't mean you have to subscribe to participate. This is a special one-time this week thing. Because I think I owe you guys. So, okay, that's enough of the back patting and everything else. I just basically want to say thank you very, very, very much for all the support that you give. Let's get into some of your questions now because the Q&A only works with Q's. Kevin Rich says, I'll start. What are end ball bits best used for? I've been wanting to use my, okay, I'm guessing my 6.2 tapered degree ball nose. But when looking at a preview and comparing to a 60 degree V bit, doesn't look as good. I'm guessing VCarve desktop version 11.5. Well, they're two different bits for two different they're two different bits for two different uses. A V bit is going to carve that V shape. A tapered ball nose is going to use the tip of that bit to carve fine detail. Okay, they're for two different uses. Now, can you use that tapered ball nose bit in place of a V bit? Yes, you can. You are going to get a different result because you have that rounded tip on the tapered ball nose where you have a pointed tip on that V bit. So let me jump over here into Aspire, and this is the same thing in VCarve Pro and VCarve Desktop. Okay. Let's say I have a let's a little rectangle here and another rectangle here. All right, I'm not doing anything to make this pretty or uh, anything. Well, let me do this. Let me go ahead and center that up, and then I'll go ahead and center this one up so that they're even all the way around. Then we'll jump over here to Toolpaths, and I do a V-carve, and we'll use the 60-degree V-bit. Not going to use a flat depth. Let's just let it cut however deep it needs to cut. Okay. And that's the only, I'm not going to use any clearance tools. We're just going to let it go. We'll calculate it, and I'll change the toolpath color so you can see it. Let's go with something other than black this time, and we'll preview it. Okay, now when I zoom in here, we can see that I've got a nice sharp corner here, and that V-bit has made a nice sharp trench, for lack of a better term. Okay. So that's the use for a V-bit. There are other uses, but that's the most common use, is for a V-carve toolpath. Okay. We'll reset the preview, close that. I'm going to come back over here into the 2D view. Let's move these to another layer and turn that layer off. So we'll move this to a new layer, just call it layer 2. I don't want it to be visible because it'll just get in my way. We'll click OK. Where a tapered ball nose bit comes into play is, let's carve an alligator straight out of the clip art, and I'll make it a little bit bigger just because. I'll go into my modeling tab, and I want to trace a line around my alligator. Okay. And I'll just create a vector boundary around the alligator. Then I'll come over, I'll select that vector boundary, and I'll do a 3D finishing toolpath. Now, we have another question right here. Working on a 3D relief, why does my bit plunge too deeply into the material, causing burning and other problems? Using Aspire to roughing and finishing the job. Here is why. This kind of dovetails into the other question, okay? Here is why. We go into material setup. It's telling me my material thickness, where my XYZ is. Everything is just fine. We'll click OK. Okay, recalculate. Okay, all right, fine. Now I'm in my tapered ball nose. I've got my 1/16 inch tapered ball nose with a 5.5 degree angle on it. Okay. That's a very small ball nose bit. Okay. I'm going to select that vector, and that's my machine boundary. Okay. It's going to machine this model to that vector boundary. All right. Here's the answer to your question, Headlow 1. It's because you have an offset strategy selected when you create your finishing toolpath. Okay. Using an offset strategy, your bit's going to come to the center of your model. It's going to plunge in down to whatever depth it needs to go to. At that point, then it's going to start working its way out offset. Okay. If your model is down in a dish, it's going to plunge down into that dish and start carving that model. If, like this one, the alligator here, it's not in a dish, and this is the highest point of your model, you're probably okay. If it's down in a dish, though, it's going to go all the way down to that level, whatever level it is in the center, and it's going to start carving. My basic rule of thumb is if I'm carving a model that is down in a dish, I'm going to use a raster strategy, meaning the bit's going to go back and forth like this instead of starting in the middle and going around. Now, if in this case, the bit, the high point of the model is more towards the center, then I will use an offset strategy. Because if I have it plunge down over here on the edges where the model is cutting deeper, it's going to be the same thing as that dish situation where your model is plunging real deep and then moving back and forth up to the shallower areas. So my point in this is you need to look at what your model is, where the high points are, how much material you have removed in that roughing toolpath, because I believe you said you're using you're doing roughing and finishing toolpaths. There's another aspect of this that we'll get into in just a minute. But basically, you need to figure out where your high point is and match your strategy as well as your toolpath, your roughing toolpath to that model placement, and that model thickness, because the software doesn't care. If you're carving this, I believe this model thickness is 0.6. If your model thickness is 0.6 and you're out here and you plunge in and start cutting this raster, it's going down 0.6. And if your bit's not capable of cutting that deep, you're in a world of hurt. That's when you start here in the middle, where I don't know if you can see my readouts down here. If you look at the depth, it's not as bad. Okay. So, you know, that's just something to watch out for. Now, on a raster strategy, it would start down at the bottom, or depending upon where your start point is and what your raster angle is. Boom, your raster angle is. It could start down here at the bottom. It could start over here at the side, whatever. It's going to ease down into that dish, if that makes any sense. You'll start out here on the outside edge and work your way deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's gentler on the bit. Because at the end of the day, this is a 1/16 inch tip on this bit. That's pretty fragile. The rest of the, as it goes up in that 5.5 degrees, it gets stronger and stronger, but that tip is still a 1/16 of an inch diameter. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to do this offset, and we'll get back to the tapered ball nose versus the V-bit, and we'll calculate it. And I got to turn off that V-carve. Toolpath is driving me nuts. And we can see where this bit is going to carve. I'll zoom way in so that you can see these blue lines. These blue lines are the actual cuts running back and forth along this model. That tapered ball nose, Let's go ahead and start previewing. That tapered ball nose is there to get down into these little detailed portions and get into these little cracks and crevices in between the rough portions of this alligator's skin and what have you, down in here in the creases where his legs are. That's what that tapered ball nose is meant to do. Okay? Now, can you use a tapered ball nose instead of a V-bit? Yes. It's been done, oh gosh, it's been done since the very beginning. Is it the right tool for the job? That depends upon the the project. There are times that a tapered ball nose is appropriate. There are times that a V-bit is appropriate. And that's just, that comes with figuring out what the project is, what the project is for. And there are a lot of variables involved in that. Is this something that's going to be hanging on the wall 5 feet up, or is this something you're going to be holding in your hand? That's going to also dictate. So that's the main difference. That's the main purpose of the tapered ball nose bit versus a V bit. So let me go ahead and reset this, and we'll address Eyal's question over here. Is there no way to tell it to do multiple passes with a maximum depth increased on each pass? There is. You would select your bit, go in and edit, and you can't do it in edit. You would have to go into the bit itself and its pass depth. That's what you would need to adjust. Now, that doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. And that's where we get into the need to do a roughing toolpath. And this is the other part of that head low. Okay, the model's in a dish. We'll change to raster. If we're doing a 3D, let me go back into the 2D view and make sure my vector is still selected. It is. If we're doing a 3D roughing toolpath, here's where we can help ourselves. All right. In that we have, okay, now a 3D roughing toolpath is there to hog away most of the material down to close to the model. All right. And we do that by putting in a machining allowance. Now, in this one, we have a 0.01 or 10,000ths of an inch machining allowance. That means that when this 1/4 inch end mill, just a standard end mill, comes down and starts removing the material above and around this model, the closest it's going to get to the model is 10,000ths of an inch, leaving just a thin skin over that model that the finishing toolpath is going to take care of. Okay. I say that's the closest it's going to get, because using this roughing strategy, a Z-level strategy, it's not going to follow every contour of that model. It's going to come down to a specific level determined by the pass depth of the 1/4 inch end mill, and it's going to hog away everything there. Then it's going to come down again, and it's going to hog it away again. Let me go ahead and calculate it and demonstrate it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We can see right here in the toolpath that it's going to cut away all of this area out here. Let's go ahead and preview it. And we see how it came in steps. It took away all this material. Then it came in a second time and took away all of this material. But it left all of this here to be carved away by that 3D finishing toolpath. Let me move that down because that's the order in which it should arrive. Now, you'll notice I'm not recalculating my finishing toolpath. The finishing toolpath is going to be the same whether I rough this out or not. Okay? And then we'll go ahead, I'll slow it down a little bit, and we'll preview that one. And we can see that it's starting the finishing right in here where it's already taken away a bunch of that material. All right, we can speed it up, get it going. Okay, and I think it froze up. No, it's just taking its sweet time. And I don't have my resolution set very high. Okay. In fact, it's set very low, and that's just because we don't want to take a half an hour for this to preview. Okay. So there is that. We have our model cut. Now, that's with a Z-level roughing strategy, meaning it's going to come down level by level until it gets that material cleared out. Now, you see what I mean about the closest it got to the model is 10,000ths of an inch, but it didn't stay that 10,000ths of an inch away from the model. Now, what we can do to change that is use a 3D raster roughing strategy. But for this, I wouldn't use a standard end mill. For this, I would use a ball nose. Just simply because there's my 1/4 inch ball nose there. And the step over is, now we can raise that up. This is I'm going to raise my step over up to 25%. And we'll select that bit. What this is going to do is that 1/4 inch ball nose is going to follow the same pattern that the finishing tool path will follow and get down and hug closer to that model, leaving 10,000ths of an inch for that finishing bit to come clean up. So calculate that, and it's going to take longer. It's going to be a lot longer machining time. Okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll preview that tool path, and we see what it did. It's going in and it's clearing out more of that model, leaving that 10,000ths of an inch for that finishing bit to come in and clean up. Okay. And then the finishing tool path will come along the same as it did before. The finishing tool path doesn't rely on that roughing tool path. That roughing tool path is just there to protect your finishing bit. Okay. What it does affect, however, is machining time. So let's close this and let's just do a summary. Let's look at it here. The 3D finish is going to take that 1 hour and 44 minutes, no matter whether I do a roughing tool path or not. Okay. But let's look at the roughing. The time for the roughing using the Z, not the Z level, but the raster is 29 minutes. Okay. Not bad, not good, but not bad. If I go back into the roughing tool path and I change over to the Z level, and I use that 1/4 inch end mill that I was using before, select, calculate, will uncheck all of them, close that, and go into the summary. 3D roughing is 2 minutes. So by using that raster strategy, we added 27 minutes of machine time. So it's a trade-off. If you're doing something that's particularly deep, you may want to go with the raster strategy on your roughing toolpath. If you're doing something that's not as important, not as detailed, maybe you're just hollowing out a dish with nothing else in it. Let's say, I don't know how many of you follow Frank Howarth. He did a cutting board with a dish in it for an ulu earlier today in his video. If you're doing that kind of a cutting board with a nice dish in the middle of it, you don't need a lot of detail. You can go ahead and do a 3D roughing like this. You know, there are trade-offs. It's down to machine time versus what is more or less detrimental to a bit. Russell Faraday brings up an excellent point here. Roughing gives better accuracy of detail because tool deflection is minimal on the finishing pass, and that is correct. It also is easier on the bit in that you're less likely to break the tip of a bit if you are only removing, say, up to about 30 thousandths of an inch of material versus a 1/4 of an inch or more, you know. You're also going to be less likely to burn because I know you mentioned burning, Headlow. If you're less likely to burn the material as it's trying to hog out all that stuff while it's moving. So, okay, we've got more questions coming on. I hope that answers both of you on that. And let's go ahead and come back over here, get into some other questions. Tim Keller saying, in Mach 4, if I stopped and raised the spindle, can I just hit the start again and will it start back at the same spot it stopped? Not necessarily. It should, but is that something you really want to do? Generally speaking, if I have to stop a toolpath, what I'll do is I'll wait for the machine to lift up out of the material. I'll stop it at that point. Okay, you're less likely to have a mistake if it's starting again when the bit is already out of the material. So let's say you've carved an area over to one side. Now it's getting ready to lift up. It's lifting up to move over to another position. You hit, I don't have Mach 4 up now, and I can't remember exactly what the button name is. I believe it's feed hold. Don't hit stop. If you hit stop or emergency stop, you got to rehome the machine and start over. I believe it's feed hold. It will finish that movement, but it won't execute the next line of G code, which would be a plunge. So, and then you run from here. The button is run from here, and it will go ahead and start again. So, let's see here. Gary Graham says, I did a global map 36 by 22 at high level for best detail using a 14 degree A 1/4 inch ball nose? Okay. The projection was 245 hours. After 3 days of continuous running, I burnt out the bit. Should I schedule some pause for a cool down? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Very much so. And there's a lot there are going to be a lot of arguments on this, okay? There always will be. It's just the nature of the beast. When you are finished running a toolpath, you should be able to hold that bit in your hand without gloves. Correct feeds and speeds are ejecting chips, not dust. They're ejecting chips of material, and those chips should be taking the heat with them. Now, running that long, it's going to build up heat. But if it's building up that much heat, you need to either slow down your RPMs or speed up your feed rate or a combination of the two. And definitely take breaks. Pause and let it take a break. Okay. Your said your bit ran for, well, I lost it. I lost the comment. Oh, there it is. 245 hours. That's nuts. There, yeah. That is, get into the, your step over and what have you. That's crazy for something of that size. Okay. So, let's see. Let's check on another else here. All right. Vortex 8. Hey, Mark, big fan. Thank you very much. I'm getting a Shapeoko 5 Pro soon. Okay. We'll have a 1/4 inch spindle. Okay. Do you have a recommendation on end mills that I should start out with? I did a video on bits and end mills for the absolute beginner. Just wrote myself a note to link that video down in the description of this one as soon as we're finished live. Generally speaking, I tell people to try to avoid bit sets. Okay. Basically, because while they look good and sometimes they may have a great price, chances are, in fact, the odds are, you're going to end up with a bunch of bits that you'll never use. I have several different categories of bits that I think beginners should get that would see you through the majority of a beginner's projects. And that is an end mill for cutting and pocketing, a ball nose for radiuses at the bottom of pockets and for 3D roughing, a V-bit for V carving, and let's call it a surfacing bit for surfacing materials. Because there are a lot of times you're going to mount a piece of material on the table and you'll want to flatten that top surface before you start carving. Okay. So if you can end mill, and then you can go from there, upcut and downcut. Ball nose, be they a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch ball nose, and then a tapered ball nose for 3D carving. V-bits, be it 90 degree, 60 degree, 30 degree, or all of the above. And a surfacing bit, You can go with something as small as a 3/4 inch with a 1/4 inch shank, or something as high as, I believe, I think the largest diameter I've seen with a 1/4 inch shank is like 1.5 inches diameter bit. Then that's fine. But if you have those bits, you should be able to get through just about any project the beginner would want to take on. And you'll expand from there. Now, I know I turned a lot of people off when I said I tell folks to avoid bit sets. Uh, I've done that forever. This goes back to the 1960s and 70s when I was taught woodworking by my grandfather, and he flat out told me you buy tools as you need them, because a tool that's hanging on the wall not being used is a useless tool. So buy the tools as you need them. And that's what I've done. I don't buy sets. I get a tool as I need it. And the type of projects you're doing is going to dictate. You know, if you're doing a lot of V carving, you may end up with 15 or 20 different V bits of various diameters, various angles. If you don't do a lot of V carving, you're just cutting 2D shapes, a V bit is kind of worthless to you. So don't spend a lot of money. Buy good quality, but don't spend a lot of money on bits that you're not going to use. And if you don't know, by all means, ask. Ask anybody and everybody. I don't have any particular brand loyalty, but there are a lot of opinions out there. There are some very reputable manufacturers out there. Um, just kind of follow your gut on, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And if it's a price that's dramatically lower than everybody else, probably a reason for it. So you can expect to pay in the $20 to $60 range for good quality bit, depending upon what it is. You can spend a lot more. My surfacing bit was $180, but some of my V bits were $14 for a 3-pack. So, you know, let the project and your budget be your guide. But basically, end mills, ball nose bits, V bits, and a surfacing bit. And then after that, you can go in any direction. That should see you through just about everything. So let's see here. Dwayne Ruthig says, I've added a pin under both end mill and under special in my database. After restart, the pins are there. When I try to choose one for a profile cut in a project, the pins don't show up. Ideas. Yes, something Vectric has built in to the software, and I want to say they started this in version 10.5, maybe it was version 11, is they added a bit of discrimination into the tool database. In that, for instance, and one of the most obvious choices, if you're doing a V-carve toolpath, it's not going to load your entire tool database, because I don't think you're going to be using a diamond drag bit or a 2.5-inch diameter surfacing bit to do a V carving. So it doesn't load those bits and give you those options. Okay. What you can do is, now you say you added a pin under end mill. Did you enter it as an end mill? Did you enter the tip diameter as the end mill? Personally, I would enter this, I would enter a pin as an engraving tool. Same as you would like a diamond drag bit or something like that. In fact, I would probably be more likely to enter it as a diamond drag bit. That way it knows not to turn the spindle on, etc., etc. You know, it so what I'm getting at is so when you go to do a profile, it's going to look for bits that would be normally associated with a profile toolpath. If you're doing a 3D carve, it's not going to put up the tools in the database that you wouldn't associate with that toolpath. Okay, Dwayne says no. Added it as a diamond drag under the end mills. Yeah, add it to the category of engraving tools and see what happens there. Because again, they've added, and I don't know what the criteria is for, say, a profile toolpath. I'm not really sure. But when you go into that toolpath and go to add a tool, it will kick out tools that are not normally associated with that toolpath. So you might try putting it in the engraving tools category and see if it comes up there. I'm getting ready to do the same thing. So maybe we can work on it one Monday. Maybe we can do it this Monday. And because I have not entered this in my tool database, maybe we can figure it out together live. So, in fact, that might be a good idea to do Monday. We'll see. Let's see. I know that's not really an answer, but let's work on it. Okay. Powell Patterson says, I'm still trying to figure out how to trace the profile of a scan of a molding profile. Okay. If you're talking about you've got a molding and you have, if you're talking about a molding that you have a cross section of physically in your hand, if you have a scanner, probably the easiest way to do it would be to lay that piece of molding down on the end of it down on a piece of paper, trace it physically on paper, scan that into your computer as if you can, scan it as a PNG. If you can't, scan it as a JPEG. And then import it into, I don't have any drawings on this computer that I could show you. Let's go back over to Spire over here. We'll back out, go into the 2D view, and I'll move all of this to a new layer. Shift click, move to layer, new layer, and don't want to make it visible. Okay. Get into the drawing tab, and if your drawing will be out here in the middle, just use your drawing tools, polyline, arc, draw curve, and freehand drawing to trace that pattern. And remember, what you're looking for is an open vector similar to molding profiles. You're looking for an open vector similar to that. Okay. Now, I cut a thin cross section of it and scanned it. Trace it, and then scan that tracing. Then use your tools, your drawing tools, to come in and let's do something else here. Let's move to layer, new layer. I want to keep this visible and active, and let's make this turquoise. Okay, so now that's too light. Let's go up here and change that color. It needs to be something dark that you can see. All right, it's kind of purple. So we're going to take our drawing tools. This is my tracing. Okay. And I'm going to come along here and I'm going to trace. Nope, I'm not. I'm going to stop. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to make layer 1 active because I want to trace this on layer 1. There we go. Now I'm going to take my, and I'm just going to trace there to there and hit spacebar. Then I'll trace here to here. Hit spacebar. So I've got 2 lines here. Now I'm going to take, where am I at? I'm going to draw a curve. I'm going to go here down to roughly the middle of that span. Here, here, spacebar. Tap the letter. Now go back to selection mode. Select that span. Go into node editing, and now I'm going to adjust it to follow that curve. Come on. Let's come down here. Come on. You get the idea. You're going to adjust that tracing to match the contour. There we go. Okay. Tap N to come out of node editing. Okay. Then when you've got that done, you can select all of your vectors. I'm going to uncheck the one I'm tracing. And I'm going to join those to one open vector. So that when I turn off layer 4, there's my tracing. This is exactly what you're trying to do. Okay, there's a very basic demonstration. Now, also remember that Vectric has added, let me get rid of this, delete that, and I'll turn layer 4 back on. Vectric has recently added the freehand drawing tool. Now, let me tell you straight up, I am not good with this, okay? I'm not very good with this at all. So we'll come in here, and I'm using a mouse. I'm not using a tablet, so that's part of it. So I'm going to, whoa, see what I'm getting here? It wants to move wherever it wants to go. Now that actually, because I have the smoothness and the stabilize, that actually did pretty good. But as you can see, it's not right on there. But again, it's just another vector. Go into node editing. I can grab that and bring it right there. Come down to the other end. Grab that, bring it right there so that I have. All right, now I've got a little bit of a Bezier action going here. Right click to line. Okay. You see what you see what I'm getting at. There are a multitudes of ways of skinning that proverbial cat. So either using the freehand draw tool over here, or a combination of draw curves, draw arcs, draw line, polyline, things of that nature. It is the I don't know, the initial I don't know, a lot of people's gut feelings would say to use bitmap trace. I don't like to do that, especially on something like what you're talking about, where you've scanned in something and you're trying to uh, trace that as a single vector. I don't like to use the bitmap trace tool because then you got a whole bunch of different variables that you got to get into, noise levels and this, that, and the other. And now you've got one closed vector that surrounds what you're trying to trace. Just trace the actual line that you have drawn, your tracing of your molding. And it takes practice. I'm not good at it, but I know how to use node editing to go in and try to fix it, you know. So I hope that helps a little bit. Let's see, back to another topic here. John Thompson says he added his as a ball nose. Okay. Um, let's see here. And Rob is offering to help him out. See, this is another advantage of channel membership, and I don't push it as much as I should, I guess. Dwayne is a channel member. Rob Sandstrom is a channel member, and I've made it easy for channel members to stay in contact with one another. And these guys, oh man, they are excellent. Believe me here. Let's see here. Pal Patterson says, I didn't have good results trying bitmap trace, and you probably won't. This is one of those cases where hand tracing is going to be the way to go. And you could spend a ton of time on it. Or you can learn techniques. I'm kind of trying to place my words carefully here. Learn techniques that will help you to alleviate some of that time. For instance, let me get back over here and we'll get back in here. On doing something like this, it may be as simple as drawing a circle that is kind of the same diameter or relatively close to the diameter of what you're trying to trace. And it may be perfect, it may not be perfect. But you see what I have here. I have it's kind of following, but not. So what I'll do is I've got that circle selected, tap N to go into node editing, and I'm going to come right here to this point, right click, cut vector. Come up here to this point, right click, cut vector. Now I'm going to select that segment because I don't need it, and I'm going to delete it. Come out of node editing, and now I'm left with this right here. Now I can put it into move and transform, grab it and put it right there. Grab that end and put it right there. Snap it right there. Okay. Now go into node editing. I'm going to right click the line and I'm going to change it to Bezier. Well, now I can move this point right here. And it's just a matter of simply getting in and adjusting these handles. You may never get it 100% perfect, but you can, by God, get close. And let's play with this. I do that a lot. Use circles and lines and curves and just get in and play. Okay? You see, Powell, what I'm talking about is that you can learn techniques like that to help you get what you need when you need it. And tap in. Yes, that is down. That is snapped there. Yes, that is snapped there. Okay, we're good. And it just takes practice. This is just like anything else. I'm going to snap to the end of that vector there. I'm going to bring it up right there, boom, and then hit spacebar. This is just like anything else. There is no replacement for experience. And the only way to get that experience is to do it. So I've selected both of those pieces. I've got two open vectors. I want to join them to make them one. There we go. I now have that segment of that vector traced. Oh, I've got both of these. Okay. And I did that with modifying an arc of a circle and drawing a couple of straight lines. This is how I would trace the profile of a molding that I wanted to copy. Would be you've already taken a cross section. I would take just a standard ballpoint pen and put that cross section down and trace around the profile side, because bring this back up here for a second. As you can see on this profile, you don't need that backside. You just want this profile edge, and it'll follow that. So sometimes there isn't an automatic way. And even with bitmap tracing, there are a lot of times that I'll go back and I'll delete entire vectors that the bitmap trace has have selected for me, and I'll go back and I'll delete them and I'll hand trace it, simply because I can get a better result that way. You know, especially if you zoom in and you see a whole bunch of jagged edges in there where you know it's supposed to be a straight line. Well, just delete that whole thing and draw a straight line, rather than trying to get rid of every node or every point. So it takes practice, and I'm still not really good at it, but I can get the job done. Okay, let me go ahead and come back over here. Again, thank you for the questions. You guys had some great questions this time. Thank you for all of the views. Thank you for all of the shares. Thank you for all of the subscriptions. Thank you especially to all of my channel members. I mean, it's really, number one, it's really humbling to know that there's enough interest in anything that I'm saying or doing that you guys want to come back. That blows me away. This being episode 200 here, we are in year 2 of channel membership. Tomorrow will be the 7th members only live stream. So that's what, 59 episodes? This is blown up more than I ever thought it would. No, I'm not one of the top 10 YouTubers. I don't even really see myself as a YouTuber. I'm just a guy that likes to talk CNC, that likes to do CNC, that genuinely enjoys trying to help folks who are getting frustrated with whatever it is they're trying to work on. And it's just a lot of fun. It really is fun for me to do this, and that's 100% because of you guys. You make this all worth it, and thank you very much. Channel members, tomorrow I didn't really have anything planned, but with the discussion that's going on out here in the chat right now with trying to get a pen holder entered into the database, we can talk about that. And if you guys don't want to talk about that, channel members, shoot me some info on what you want to talk about. I'm ready to do most anything. There are some things even a pig won't do. So, and I fall into that category. Check the community tab for the link to tomorrow's members only live Q&A. My buddy Bull Shanigan is out here in the chat. He runs a tidy little Keebler tree over on Facebook called The Make. I'll put a link to it down in the description of this video as soon as we're done live. And he does a live stream called Talking Bull. And it's a lot of fun. He did an episode earlier today on airbrushing and airbrush techniques. Something I don't know nothing about, and I had to back out of his live stream to come do this. I'm going to go back and watch it to finish up pick up where I left off as soon as I'm done here. Tomorrow he's going to be doing a Talking Bull session, and yes, I'll join you, Bull. You know me. I'm just narcissistic enough to where the most dangerous place you could stand would be between me and a camera. So yeah, wouldn't miss it. So that'll be tomorrow in the make. Gary, don't worry about it. Sorry for my lengthy question at 245 hours being dumb. It is not dumb. The only dumb question is the one you don't ask. So, and I'm serious about that. I know it's a cliche and, oh, well, you gotta, no, ask, because that's how you avoid catastrophe. That's how you avoid catastrophe. Especially if it's something you thought you should have asked but didn't. So never, never, never feel bad about asking a question. Okay. Unless that question is, how can I live forever? Because why would you want to? Anyway, God, I've rambled a lot today. Yes, by all means, ask all the questions you want. Thank you again, everybody. Channel members, I'll see you tomorrow. I want to give a shout out to my friend Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media. If you are thinking about a website, a web store, you want to offer your products, your services, your patterns, your plans, you want to make merch, you want to sell CNC files, talk to Steve. He will set you up. He's the man, the myth, the legend, and the only website individual I will recommend. He's also a sponsor of MarkLindsayCNC.com. So I will see you, the rest of you, next week. See channel members tomorrow. But for now, it's Sunday. It's hot out there. Lay back and enjoy. Get yourself a beverage and chill out. I mean, you don't always have to be making sawdust. You could be getting into the software and tracing profiles. See you next week. Thank you for everything, and have a great rest of your day.